You're listening to the micro version of the Savage Lovecast. www.savagelovecast.com.
If you're stuck in a relationship quandary, or if you're looking for sexual harmony, well, there's nothing you can't ask on the Savage Lovecast.
Here's some things we're not going to talk about at the top of today's show. Here's some words you're not going to hear come out of my mouth except this once. Baskets, deplorables, Pam Bondi, the Trump Foundation, pneumonia, or the numbers 9 and 11. What I want to talk about is cocksuckers on television, if you will indulge me. Finding Prince Charming premiered last Thursday on Logo. Finding Prince Charming is the gay bachelor/bachelorette. It is the gay dating show, or the gay find me my one true love, find me marriage, white picket fence, monogamy show for gay men, hosted by Lance Bass on Logo. And it premiered last week, and there was a lot of controversy in the run-up that I really don't want to go into because I really don't think it should matter. Turns out the guy who was cast as the lead, the star, the bachelor, the guy whose hand and everything else all the other contestants are competing for, had done some sex work earlier in his life and had made a couple of dirty videos. Which I don't think, A, should matter, and B, I don't think it should really surprise anyone, because going on a dating show on television is a form of sex work itself. To have done sex work professionally is a qualification, I think, to be on a show like The Bachelor, Bachelorette, or now Finding Prince Charming. What I found interesting about watching the show, and let me just say up front, I don't think it was a terrible or tragic or incompetent iteration of the form. It was pretty good. It was pretty entertaining. But what I found problematic, if I may steal that term and cheapen it and degrade it by having it come out of my mouth, what I found problematic about the show was that the producers didn't pay attention to what the dynamic really is on a show like The Bachelor or The Bachelorette. And the dynamic is engineered scarcity. There is one bachelorette and there are 13 suitors competing for her pussy. There's one pussy, there's 13 dicks, and there's only one pussy for those dicks. Only one sheath for those swords. And so there's scarcity and there's a competition there. Who will get the girl and everything that comes with her? The Bachelor. Who will get the dick and everything comes with it? There's 13 pussies, one dick, and there's a competition. There is scarcity. And the problem on a gay dating show is that there are 13 dicks and one other dick. And the contestants, the suitors, the people who are competing for the lead's hand, are as likely or as able to turn to each other for the dick that they want as they are to pine for the star dick, the lead dick. It just kind of doesn't work because there's no scarcity. This is a problem I've identified in the past. MTV had a dating show many years ago called Next, where 4 people would sit on a bus and there'd be somebody off the bus that they were all going to go and have a date with. And if that person didn't want to keep seeing them after a few minutes, they would say next, and someone else would get off the bus. And to be fair and to be progressive and to be pro-gay, MTV a couple of times used gay dudes. But the problem was the 4 dudes on the bus ended up in a pile on the floor on the bus and didn't give a shit about the guy outside the bus because they had plenty of dick inside the bus because there was no scarcity. And so it seems to me that if you're going to do a gay dating show, you need to engineer that scarcity. And it seems obvious to me that that would be easy and doable and interesting, because there are aspects to gay male subcultures, sexual subcultures, that gay men talk about all the time and are all hyper aware of, and that straight people find kind of fascinating. And so putting this on TV, my God, straight people would be interested and fascinated, and gay people would be like, yep, there it is. That's what gay dating can be like. And how do you do that? How do you create that scarcity? 13 bottoms, 1 top. Or 13 tops, 1 bottom that they're all competing for. Or 13 bears, 1 skinny twink only into bears. And 13 bears only into skinny twinks. Or 1 BDSM bondage toppy guy and 13 subs. So that there are 13 pots and only 1 lid. And then there is scarcity. Then there is a competition. Now here's hoping Finding Prince Charming does well enough that there is a season 2. And that in season 2, the producers get it right. Not 13 interchangeable, semi-diverse candidates, mostly mask for mask type, seeking the picket fence and the ring and commitment and whatever else, but 13 pots and 1 lid that they are competing for. then we won't have to worry about all the contestants ending up in a heap on the lawn, which is the likeliest possible outcome for Finding Prince Charming, which is why I will be watching. And speaking of the gays on the television sets, a big congratulations to Rupaul, who won an Emmy Award this weekend for Outstanding Host of a Variety, Nonfiction, or Reality Program. Ru was up against Dancing with the Stars' Tom Bergeron, Heidi Klum and Tim Gunn from Project Runway, Jane Lynch from Hollywood Games Night, and American Idol's Ryan Seacrest and others. And she beat out that field, and congratulations, Ru. Ru won that Emmy for hosting Drag Race. I really think that Drag Race deserves an award and deserves more credit from Queerland than it gets for something else Drag Race does each and every season, which is show us a much more diverse range of gay men than any other program on television or any other network on television has ever bothered to show us. You talk to people, some, queer, radical, progressive types like me. You talk to a lot of queer people, and they will complain about the way gay people are represented on television. It's always could pass for straight, semi-masculine, hot, ripped, tall, middle class, almost always white guys that you see on television. You know where you can see gay men of all races, gay non-native English speakers, gay immigrants, gay people who are heavy, gay people who are poor, gay people who've been to prison? You know where you see this range of gay male types? RuPaul's Drag Race every season. And you, if you care about the diversity of representation of gay men on television, you should be watching and supporting RuPaul's Drag Race. It's good reality television. It's also, ironically, the most diverse representation, the most diverse core sample of gay men that you will see on television, all through the prism of drag and a reality show competition, which is telling, interesting. And RuPaul's Drag Race, in addition to being fun, and RuPaul's Drag Race, in addition to having an Emmy award-winning host, is also good politics and good for gay men. All right, coming up today on the micro edition of the Savage Lovecast, your questions plus my brother here to talk about racism, bigotry, prohibition, and Donald Trump, and how we've heard this song before. And on the Magnum edition of the Savage Lovecast, which you can subscribe to at savagelovecast.com, we've got Bailey J here to talk about dating, about trans women, and how to date trans women without objectifying trans women. All coming up right after this. This episode of the Lovecast is brought to you by Stamps.com. Buy and print official U.S. postage using your own computer and your own printer. For a special offer, which includes a digital scale and up to $55 worth of free postage, go to Stamps.com and enter SAVAGE. We want to thank Audible.com for their support of the Savage Lovecast. For a free 30-day trial, go to audible.com/savage. This episode of the Savage Lovecast is brought to you by Casper, an online retailer of premium mattresses for a fraction of the cost, because everyone deserves a great night's sleep. Get $50 off any mattress purchase by going to casper.com/savagelove and entering the promo code SAVAGELOVE.
Dan, I really like your show. Now I need some advice. I'm living on Canada's East Coast. My son is 16 and about to start grade 11, along with his best friend Chris. The problem is my son and I, think Chris is headed for disaster, and we don't know if we can do anything to stop the train wreck we see coming. Chris and his girlfriend have been together since grade 9, and they are sexually active. My son has been recently told by his friend's girlfriend that she wants to have a baby with Chris. Chris, according to my son, is on board with this idea and thinks he can manage a baby, school, and work. Chris's girlfriend has dropped out of school partway through grade 10 last school year. Her plan is to continue to work at the laundromat she currently holds a job at and live with Chris and the baby in a family-owned trailer. She has claimed that she is now off birth control. She was taking the pill, no more. I don't know what to do. Chris lost his mom last winter to cancer, and he and his girlfriend are each other's first loves, and I know how powerful that first relationship can be. Do I approach a family member of Chris's? I don't know his girlfriend's family at all, but I am acquaintances with Chris's aunt, who is very close to his mom, her sister. Should I reach out to her? If I do this, it will impact Chris's trust and his friendship with my son. What do you do? I feel like no matter who tries to reach out to these kids, it will drive them closer together and perhaps cause them to seclude themselves more than they already have, maybe even prompt them to go through with this crazy plan
I know this feeling of wanting to do something, wanting to intervene without there actually being anything you reasonably could do that would be effective. You can't break up this girl's vagina. You can't separate them. You can't call the authorities and have these two teenagers dragged away from each other. The age of consent for sexual activity in Canada is 16. It sounds like both of these kids are 16-ish, and they can be sexual, and they can slam their genitals down on the self-destruct button if that's what they want to do. And it's tempting to look at the situation and go, oh my God, they're going to destroy their lives. You're going to destroy your lives. And is that fair in all cases? Are there cases of people who got pregnant as teenagers in high school and lived a rougher life but didn't necessarily destroy their lives? Maybe what we should say instead of destroy, which sounds so catastrophizing and would cause these two kids, if you tried to talk to them, just to shut you down, derail, divert, distract their lives, complicate their lives needlessly at this stage when they are both still children. Their frontal lobes aren't fully developed yet. They aren't able to make rational adult decisions about the next, really, 30, 40 years of their lives, the rest of their lives. And you can impress that upon them, but then at a certain point, you have to let them do what they're gonna do anyway. Because what other choice do you have? You can't put him in a chastity cage, and you can't, again, brick up her vagina. You can, however, and I think you should, speak to the aunt about what you know to be going on, even if it risks your son's relationship with this friend. There are times, we've covered this a lot on the podcast, there are times when you have to risk a friendship to intervene. Somebody's going to marry someone who's terrible. You might have to speak up before the wedding, even if it pisses that person off, who's your friend, even if it puts the friendship at risk. There are times when you risk those friendships. You would, of course, be risking your son's friendship in this. And so I think you need to involve your son in this conversation about what you should do or what can be done. But at a certain point, you have to step back. You can stage an intervention. You can all gather around this boy and attempt to talk sense to him. But you're right. The harder you go, the harder you drive this, the harder you push this, the likely you already pushed them together. They will Romeo and Juliet this. The whole world is against us. That means our love is so powerful and real and transcendent. And there's only one way to prove all of these olds wrong, that they're wrong about our love and its permanence, that they're wrong about our plan and its advisability, and that's to go through with it. So I think you go in there saying, you need to really think about this. And then that kind of empowers them to make their own choices and their own decision, rather than saying, do not do this, which is, of course, as a parent, what I would be tempted to say. If I knew this kid or these kids or was the father of one of these kids, I would go in with, do not do this. But it might be better, and I think I can see this because I'm at a remove from this situation, and these aren't kids I know or my kid, for you to go in saying, think about it. Think about it, think about it, think about it. And if you know anyone who did this very thing, who had kids at 15, 16, 17 years old, you might want to involve them in the conversation. Even if their example isn't catastrophic, even if they managed, as most people who have children young do, they manage. Maybe a good idea to involve someone in the conversation who walked the path that these two are contemplating walking, who made the choices these two are thinking about making in that convo. But at a certain point, if someone's going to douse themselves with gasoline and light matches, there's only so much that you can do. There's only so many matchbooks you can slap out of their hands before they do it and go through with it. Makes you feel helpless, but sometimes you can't stop people from slamming their genitals down on those self-destruct buttons.
Hey, Dan, I'm a 44-year-old white boy that prefers women and living in Nashville, Tennessee. I've got a midlife relationship question for you. My wife died last July. In January, I met this girl on Tinder. We went out probably more than I've been out with any other girl since. We took an overnight trip to Fall Creek Falls to go hiking. She flew down to Florida for the weekend when I was there for training for the business that I bought. I think she's a really awesome person. The problem is that I don't really enjoy kissing her or having sex with her. We live an hour apart. We both have children at home, so we didn't get to see each other a lot. She went on vacation right after the last time we saw each other, and I kind of ignored her a little bit. I finally did text her back and let her know that I was having a really hard time because it was my wife's birthday had just passed and the anniversary of her death was coming up. My question is, should I explain things further to her? We're friends on Facebook. I see her post all the time. She doesn't seem like she's too devastated about losing me. I just don't want to be a dickhead.
There is something you need to explain to her, but it's not, I don't enjoy kissing you, I'm not actually attracted to you physically, and I didn't enjoy the sex. You don't have to say that. What you do have to tell her, and the reason you don't want to say that is you don't want to leave her in worse shape than you found her. You don't want to say something devastating. And that's really subjective, the kind of subjective personal experience shit that when someone hears from someone who's on the way out, someone who's ending the relationship, they blow that up to nobody ever is going to want to kiss me. I am a lousy kisser. I am bad sex. Instead of we didn't click. These two, me and this person, we didn't click. So you don't want to give her those reasons. You don't want to lay out that particular critique that you cite. And that is a legitimate thing to take into account when you're thinking of making some sort of long-term commitment or becoming involved with somebody over the long term. You guys clicked emotionally, you got along well, you had a good time hanging out, but the sex didn't really work for you and you're done, you're out. But there is something that you do owe her, which is closure. For lack of a better word, I actually hate that word. People often demand closure, and what they're asking for is for the person that they're demanding that closure from to stay involved with them, because I get to decide when you've given me the closure that I want, and so you can never get away from me. But in this case, you do need to close this. You need to put a lid on it, because what you said to her was, I'm having a hard time with the anniversary of my wife's death and my wife's birthday. And so she may think we're on hold. He just needs some time and space. And she's going on with her life. And as you can see on Facebook and whatever other social media you're following on, she's not at home weeping, but she's probably at home expecting a call from you. She's probably at home reasonably expecting to pick things up where you two left off once you come through these weeks of depression, these weeks of sitting with your feelings about your wife, your late wife. That's not the case. You're not going to pick things up where you left off. You owe her that. And so you write her a note saying, I like you. You're a wonderful person. The times that we shared were really good for me and really healing, but I don't think that we're right for each other. I don't think that I want to remain romantically involved with you going forward. You're a wonderful person. Let's be friends and let's remain friendly. You have to stick the dismount in every sense of the term. You have to stick the dismount, and you owe her that, at least that. And I'm very sorry about the loss of your wife, and I'm sorry for your kids, and I hope you are feeling better. And I think you'll feel better about the end of this relationship if you make it clear to her that it is indeed over. A lot of small businesses out there, you get stuck doing things the old way, just out of habit, including vital operations like mailing and shipping that can be so time-consuming. If you're still making trips to the post office, you need to stop that and get Stamps.com. With Stamps.com, you can do all your mailing and shipping right from your desk. You never have to go to the post office again. True story. I saw someone shot at the post office once. Don't go to the post office. You might get shot. With Stamps.com, print postage for any letter or package using your own computer and printer, then hand it to your mail carrier or drop it in a mailbox. Stamps.com is convenient and easy to use, and it will save you money. You'll get special postage discounts that you can't get at the post office. Right now, sign up for Stamps.com and use my name, Savage, for this special offer. A 4-week trial plus a $110 bonus offer, including postage and a digital scale. Don't wait. Go to Stamps.com, and before you do anything else, click on the microphone at the top of the homepage and type in Savage. That's Stamps.com. Click that mic and enter Savage.
Hi, Dan. I am a straight 27-year-old male, and I've been in a wonderful 10-month relationship. Everything's going great, no complaints. The only thing is, she's actually 12 years older than me. She did tell me her age pretty early on when we met, and neither of us thought that was going to be a big deal because we just assumed that it was going to be a fling. Cut to 10 months later, and it's not. I guess my question is, how common is this? Whenever I bring this up to friends or family, everybody feels the need to tell me that I'm either being shorted or that this is not the right thing for me, but I don't feel like that. Yeah, I just was wondering, am I a super minority here, or do you just not hear younger men dating older women? Is this just kind of a double standard?
According to the National Center for Family and Marriage Research at Bowling Green State University, the number of older women who've married younger men has jumped 67% in the last 50 years. So you are not alone. Digging around, I also found a page on biblical support for older women marrying younger men. So the Bible might be on your side too. You might want to do a little Googling about this. And you might want to do a lot less listening to your friends, judging your relationship. If you're happy in this relationship, that's really all that matters. And you can say age is an arbitrary number. You can use whatever cliche you want in pushing back against your friends who think you're somehow doing yourself harm or wrong by being with this person. And you've only been with this person for 10 months. You don't know how long this relationship is going to last. What your friends are doing and your family may be doing is gaming out in their heads the prospect of the next 5 or 6 decades and whether that will work out when there's this kind of significant age difference. And that's really irrelevant. Most relationships don't last 5 or 6 decades. And you can have a good and loving relationship that lasts 10 months, 12 months, a couple of years, 5 years, and it have been a success. Maybe you'll only be with this woman for another 10 months. Maybe you'll be with this woman for a decade, and then you will part as friends, both of you older and wiser, and move on to new partners. And the time will not have been wasted just because you weren't together forever. And even if the age difference was a contributing factor to the demise of the relationship or your breakup, that still doesn't mean that you wasted the time that you spent together. If that time was loving, if you both grew as people, if you were kind to each other, not just while you were together, but also in the parting, you were kind to each other. Like, people have this in their heads that if something ends, it was worthless and should never have begun. A standard we don't apply to anything really but relationships. We don't apply that standard to jobs, careers, vacations, houses we purchase, anything else, really. We don't ascribe that criteria to. But relationships we look at and say, well, if there's anything about this relationship that points to possibly it ending at some point before one or the other or both of these people die in a fire, then it should never have started. This was a waste of time. And that's just not fucking true. Even if you guys break up tomorrow, if those 10 months were a great 10 months for her and a great 10 months for you, they were 10 months well spent. You can say the same thing about 10 years or 20 years. So stop listening to your friend and enjoy this relationship for however long it lasts. We're going to take a quick break from your calls because I want to talk about, for a minute, this thing that everybody else was talking about last week. Here it is.
My culture is a very dominant culture, and it's imposing and it's causing problems. If you don't do something about it, you're going to have taco trucks every corner.
Joining me by phone to unpack the idiocy in those comments, Bill Savage, who teaches American literature at Northwestern University and writes about urban life for the Chicago Tribune and other publications, also writes about sports for ESPN.com and has written extensively about saloon culture and happens to be my older brother. Hey, Billy.
Hello, Danny. How are you?
It's good. Thank you for jumping on the phone. I really appreciate it.
Always glad to talk on the phone. Mom would be proud.
So last week at the top of the show, I played one of my favorite songs. Seems to me we've heard that song before, about Donald Trump's whole immigrant bashing shtick, right, about the racism and the othering and the demagoguery that Trump and his campaign and culture and all the rest of these alt-right shitheads have unleashed. And I made the point that this is not new. And listening to that guy talk about taco trucks, it occurred to me that even that kind of demagoguery is not new. And you are the person that I thought to call to ask about it, because you've written about exactly that kind of look at those taco trucks on every corner. But in the past, it wasn't taco trucks. What was it?
It was saloons. It was German beer gardens and Irish whiskey taverns. Before that, even it might have been Chinese opium dens. The Americans who are afraid of the other and afraid of immigration always seem to focus on sort of public or semi-public displays of identity. So in the 19th century, the German lager was held up as a horrible invasive species, along with Irish whiskey, that were going to somehow destroy American culture. And the Prohibition came about largely because it's always thought to be the Women's Christian Temperance Union and kind of just a religious movement, but it's actually about American identity and public displays of what some people considered un-American identity.
And people at that time considered Irish saloons and German beer halls as un-American manifestations of this foreign culture, these people who can never be assimilated because look at how different they are. And it really was the equivalent of demagoguing about taco trucks. Look at those saloons. Exactly. Look at all those Germans in their beer garden acting like we don't act.
And the Germans in their beer garden, their women and children are there eating food and playing oompa music. I mean, it's terrible. At least the Irish kept all the women out of their saloons for the most part. So this is absolutely part of American culture. The nativist, reactionary, anti-immigrant crowd always focuses on public displays of identity, like the nitwits at Fox who freak out over Cinco de Mayo and Mexican Independence Day parades, where people are driving around in the street with Mexican flags. They don't worry so much about St. Patrick's Day. Or Oktoberfest celebrations, because the Germans and the Irish have been thoroughly assimilated, but the Mexicans are still the other. American culture just plays the same song over and over again with different people in the enemy position.
So how is it that we have forgotten this? Everybody knows, or most educated people know, or even most people who are mildly conversant with American history know about Prohibition, but don't know that it was an anti-immigration movement targeting Germans and Irish that led to Prohibition. Maybe if more Americans knew that, more Americans would be immune to the poison that Donald Trump is out there trying to sell right now. How do we keep forgetting?
We keep forgetting because as soon as repeal happened, we were busy with the Great Depression and then World War II, and Prohibition was seen as sort of by most historians, kind of a hiccup, like an aberration in American culture. But it fundamentally changed the role of federal government in American culture, and how conservatives who hate the government don't know this is just maddening. Before Prohibition, federal law enforcement was the Secret Service, who protected the president and fought counterfeiters, and the customs agents who took care of tariffs in the ports. The Federal Bureau of Investigation was a bunch of accountants. There was no DEA. There was no massive carceral state of prisons on the federal and state and local level, putting people away for consuming products for their own pleasure. The whole giant apparatus of federal law enforcement that we now spend billions of dollars a year on grows out of Prohibition. And so people want to forget it, and there's powerful interests that want to maintain that. And we're still living in Prohibition now, it's just different substances, with the same kind of hate rhetoric attached. I mean, why do we call cannabis marijuana? Because the DEA types who got cannabis made illegal in the early 30s held up the image of crazy Mexicans raping white women because they were gone nuts on loco weed. Marijuana wasn't illegal till near the end of alcohol prohibition. Opium and heroin and cocaine weren't illegal till the second decade of the 20th century, and there was an anti-Chinese thing was used, right? The opium dens of Chinatown, the threat to American identity.
How do we keep falling for it over and over? How does the American, populace keep stepping on the same fucking rake and getting hit in the fucking face again and again and again without going, you know what? Maybe we're going to look down this time before we step on the rake that is Donald Trump and his Mexican bashing and Muslim bashing, because every time we've reshaped law and punishment because of the scary other and their opium dens or their beer gardens or their saloons or their taco trucks, in the end, we regret it. In the end, then we have to, spend a lot of time and money undoing the damage done.
Well, first of all, I have to object to your metaphor because I think that Sideshow Bob is way smarter than the American people. So every time Sideshow Bob hits that rake and goes, the reason is that as different groups of people move from outsider to insider status, they repeat the same pattern of wanting to make someone else the outsider. So the Irish and the Germans no longer have to fight back against their saloons and their beer gardens being closed, but they don't want a taco truck on every corner because that threatens them.
And it shows how inside they are now if they can be the ones policing the borders of who is in America.
Exactly. And even the religious parallels. I mean, the only thing keeping the Roman Catholic Church alive in America is Latino immigrants. So how can a media person named O'Reilly or Hannity or a politician named Ryan be against Catholicism? Well, if they're Mexican first and Catholic second, then you can do that, I guess.
Give us some recommended reading, Professor Savage, before we go.
You should read Daniel Ockren's book, Last Call, which is the most comprehensive history of Prohibition, and originally was entitled, How the Hell Did That Happen? And very quickly, anti-German sentiment was a huge part of it. Also, the Internal Revenue Service, the income tax. Think about that word. Why is it the Internal Revenue Service? Because the customs were the external revenues.
Mm-hmm.
And then Lisa McGurr's book, The War on Alcohol, which delves deeply into repeal.
And you have a book coming up. You have a book called The Old Time Saloon. It's a book from the 1930s by somebody named George Ade, but you have created an annotated edition. Tell us quickly about your book, Billy, before we let you go.
George Ade was one of the most famous writers in America in the first decades of the 20th century. First guy to have 3 plays on Broadway at once. One of America's first screenwriters and filmmakers. And he was a real conundrum. He was probably gay. He was an ardent Republican, an ardent college football fan. Purdue University's stadium is named in part for him because he raised the money to build it. And a wet. He believed that government had better things to do when the wolf was at the door than policing what people drank. And the Old Time Saloon is a great look at the politics of prohibition, the saloon culture in America from 1870 to 1920. And I hope my notes make it more interesting and connect it to contemporary issues as well.
So the book is The Old Time Saloon by George Ade, annotated by Bill Savage, coming out from University of Chicago Press next month. You can pre-order it at press.uchicago.edu. Thank you, Billy.
Thanks very much, Daniel. Talk to you later.
Audible has an unmatched selection of audiobooks, original shows, news, comedy, and more. Audiobooks are great to listen to when you are driving, on the subway or bus, doing chores around the house, or at the gym. For our listeners, Audible is offering a free 30-day trial. Just go to audible.com/savage and browse their unmatched selection of audio programs. Download a title for free and start listening. It's that easy. One audiobook you might want to consider is Last Call, The Rise and Fall of Prohibition by Daniel Okrent, narrated by Richard Poe. The book we talked about today on the Lovecast with my brother. Again, for a free 30-day trial, go to audible.com/savage. That's audible.com/savage.
Hi, Dan. I'm a 26-year-old woman, and I just started dating this man who, for the past, I would say, 4 months or so, and everything was great, but now we seem to not really be having sex. He's told me he has a low sex drive, and it's part of how he was raised. It's kind of taboo to have sex and to masturbate. Whereas I'm the complete opposite. I could masturbate all day, every day, and have sex every single day. So this has been an issue, but I've been really vocal about, we need to have sex more, we need to initiate more. Like, this is something that I need. I haven't really seen any results as of yet. So I just wanted to know your opinion on, should I move forward? Should we break up? I do really like him. So I don't know.
Please run screaming from this man. This is Dan from the future, who's just received your phone call or letter about your miserable, sexless marriage. Now that you're trapped with this person because you stayed with them because you liked them, and now that you've had a couple of kids, there's no way out, and you have incompatible libidos, and he has no or low libido, and you have a high libido, and you guys are constantly at each other's throats about this, and you are fucking miserable and thinking about cheating on him, or maybe you've already cheated on him, and he doesn't want to agree to an open relationship, so it's a betrayal, and you're going to be the bad guy if you get fired. Don't stay in this relationship. Half the mail and half the calls some weeks are from people in this relationship who didn't bail at the stage you're at now, who didn't bail early and often. You're not sexually compatible. You aren't having sex now at the start. That is not a problem that over time seems to, if ever, right itself. It's a problem that only gets worse. And something that you can sort of live with or endure now because you really like him, and whatever first flush of relationship, oxytocins are flying around, you won't be able to endure that over the long term. Over the long term, the feelings of anger, frustration, resentment, rejection will grow to a point where you will be poisoned by them. You will be made miserable by them. Look at this person, tell him you like him, he's a nice guy, but the sex ain't working, and you are looking for not just a romantic partner, but a sexual partner. And you have a right to prioritize sexual compatibility, basic fundamental sexual compatibility, not perfect match sexual compatibility, because there are no perfect matches. But no libido and a libido, that is never a match, or never a match that leads to any sort of long-term happiness and contentment. So run, and you're welcome. This episode of Savage Lovecast is brought to you by Casper. Casper is an online retailer of premium mattresses for a fraction of the cost. Casper is revolutionizing the mattress industry by cutting the cost of dealing with resellers and showrooms and passing those savings directly on to you, the consumer. The Casper mattress provides long-lasting comfort and support, and I know this because me and my husband sleep on one every night. You can buy it easily online and completely risk-free. Casper offers free delivery and painless returns within a 100-day period, so you don't have to lie down in a showroom. And Casper's mattresses uphold the highest environmental production standards, and they're made right here in the USA. Get a Casper mattress for $500 for a twin or $950 for a king-sized mattress, but you can save an additional $50 as one of our listeners by going to casper.com/savagelove and entering the promo code SavageLove. That's casper.com/savagelove and promo code SavageLove. Terms and conditions apply.
Hey, Dan, this is Jason from Minnesota. I have a question for you about poly relationships. I have been with my wife now for about 11 years and unfortunately didn't realize, much less come out to myself or anyone else for that matter, that I am poly until actually about 2 or 3 years ago. She's amazing. We've had a really solid, lots of very good conversations about it. She's unfortunately, one of those rare people who is completely monogamous and really has no interest in being with other people. And she can be nobody but who she is, and I can be nobody but who I am. We've just talked about it. She's okay with me being poly and having these other relationships, but fairly frequently, especially around times of dates and stuff like that, jealousy rears its ugly head, and it's really hard on her. So my question for you: what advice would you have to help me help her and help her to help smooth these out?
She can be nobody but who she is, which is someone who's strictly monogamous. One of those rare people, you're making the monogamous sound like the freaks here, which is, I think, not fair, because for years people who were poly or in open relationships resented very much being made to sound like freaks by the monogamists, or the monogamists, as I sometimes like to call them. So let's not flip that back on them. Not one of those rare people, one of those many, many, many people who are either effortlessly monogamous or would prefer a monogamous relationship, even if they realize they sometimes might want to sleep with other people. They're going to refrain from it, and that's the kind of relationship that they want. Monogamists aren't freaks. Poly people aren't freaks. Nobody's a freak. But she can be nobody but who she is, which is monogamous, and you can be nobody but who you are, which is not just poly, but kind of sounds selfish and a little bit of an asshole, frankly, right now. Just saying, like, now I'm going to unpack that and walk that back. I don't want to call you a freak, but because you're not, but it seems like you're being kind of a selfish jerk, perhaps, in this circumstance. With the limited information that I have, maybe you're engaged in much more sort of detailed and compassionate convo with the wife than seems to come across in the question, the way you laid it out. But the person that you are, who you are, is a person who made a monogamous commitment to this woman 11 years ago. That now you would like a pass. You'd like a get out of this shit monogamous commitment free card that you may or may not be entitled to. Just because you realized 8 years into this marriage that you were poly, that doesn't mean you get to unilaterally impose upon your wife a non-monogamous relationship or an open marriage that she didn't sign up for. This is something, if you're going to renegotiate the terms of your marriage contract, this is something that you have to do together, and she has to buy into. She can either accept she's going to have an open relationship imposed on her, or get used to it, which seems to be what she's struggling to do, or she can go. And she has a right to say to you, if you want to be with me, you can't have sex with other people. That's the commitment that you made to me. And then you get to decide whether you're going to go or not. Now, I want to exonerate you to some extent after beating the shit out of you for a minute. 11 years ago when you made this monogamous commitment, perhaps you were one of those many people out there who thought there was no other kind of commitment a person could make. And in the last decade, as we've heard a lot more about open relationships and poly relationships, you realize that that's the relationship model that you're best suited for. But, 11 years ago, some straight guy in the Midwest, you didn't know about open relationships. You'd never actually met anybody in an open relationship, much less a polyamorous relationship. And it didn't even occur to you that that could be an option. But now that you know that that's what you want. And that's what it sounds like you now have. You go off on dates, the wife gets jealous and unhappy, you go anyway. How can I help her? Well, you could not have sex with other people. That might help her. You could end your marriage if what she wants is monogamy. If monogamy, a monogamous commitment from someone who can do monogamy, even if they are still sometimes attracted to other people, would make her happier. Maybe that's the kind of relationship that she needs to be in now that she knows that you two are not on the same page about this very crucial aspect of a long-term committed relationship. Maybe she wants out. Maybe she needs out. Maybe she deserves out. Maybe getting out would be better for you too. All that said, you might want to do some reading. Opening Up by Tristan Taormino. Great place to start. There's a glossary at the back of that book with other book recommendations. Terrific book about opening. I sound like Donald fucking Trump. It's a really great book about opening up relationships. There are people out there that I know who kind of had openness imposed on them unilaterally, sort of the way you're imposing it on the wife right now unilaterally, who stayed, who worked through the jealousy, who are now content in those relationships. And in some cases, the relationships are now open mutually on both sides. So you can power through this. There have been times, I have to say, to give you your due, there have been times when someone has realized they're poly, unilaterally imposed new terms in their committed relationship to someone whom they made a monogamous commitment to in the past, and they've walked through the valley of the shadow of divorce and came out on the other side and are still together and now both open and poly and happy. So that can happen. I think it's likelier to happen in the case of your marriage if you slow it the fuck down. Maybe a few less dates. Maybe you declare a moratorium on dates with other women while you and your wife get into counseling with a sex-positive, poly-positive counselor that you can find through ASECT, AASECT.org, the American Association of Sex Education Counselors and Therapists, and you don't fuck around for a year while you two talk about what this means, while you two renegotiate the terms of your commitment, and you demonstrate to your wife her importance to you and her primacy in this relationship by foregoing fucking around, by foregoing having sex with other people, not being poly, not being who you are, just putting this shit on hold until you guys have some time to really sort it out. Because I'm sure you realized this 2-3 years ago that you were poly. I bet you didn't start seeing other women the next day. And then at some point recently, last 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, you began to act upon it. And acting upon it is causing your wife a lot of pain. So stop acting upon it, not forever, because poly's who you are, but for a while, to demonstrate to your wife, again, that she is your first priority. You are going to be who you are. But for now, you're going to put acting on that poly stuff on hold for her while you guys continue to talk about it. And if at the end of that year, or 6 months, you could put a 6-month clock on it too, at the end of that time, you're no closer, you're not on the same page, there's no way for you to be who you are and for her to be who she is and you two to be happy together, then you move on from the polypositive relationship counselor to the divorce attorneys.
Hey, Dan, calling about episode 515 and the woman who got off on secretly stalking men. I was really disappointed by your answer. You were dismissive of the guys who maybe have been stalked by ex-girlfriends or jilted lovers or people who've done property damage or made their lives difficult in some emotional way, maybe not in the physical way that women are afraid of. But still, stalking's uncool, and I don't think you should have encouraged her.
Hi, Dan. Calling in response to episode 515, your response to the woman who liked to follow men. I think that is really messed up that it's okay for a woman to do it, not a man to do it. I think if we want to proclaim the equality of the sexes, which, I think that's kind of the idea behind feminism, is that anyone can do anything regardless of their sex, then it's not okay for a woman to follow a man, just as it's not okay for a man to follow a woman. The fact that a woman following a man doesn't have the same context, I think really is not super relevant to the fact that she still could be freaking out a dude. She's doing the same things that she dislikes when men do to her. So how is that okay?
Hey, Dan, this is a response to episode 515's rant. Quick reminder, many black people are not the descendants of immigrants because slaves did not immigrate. They were kidnapped.
Hi, this is a comment for the guy in episode 515 who wanted to know how to meet good quality, authentic men. Dude, go online and Google gay charities in your area and sign up to volunteer. It doesn't have to be a huge time commitment. There are a lot of opportunities for one-time events. You're going to meet a ton of people who are excited about helping the gay community and want to meet other people like them. And you also feel really good about yourself in the process.
And we're going to leave it there. 206-302-2064 is the number here at the Savage Lovecast. If you want to record a question or a comment for a future show, please give us a buzz, 206-302-2064. Subscribe if you are listening to the 45-minute micro edition of the Savage Lovecast with ads. Know that there is a subscription-only Magnum edition of the Savage Lovecast. It's twice as long, more guests, more calls, and no ads. Go to savagelovecast.com for information about subscribing or gifting a subscription to someone else if you're already a subscriber, and we love our subscribers. Follow me on Twitter at FakeDanSavage. Follow my big brother Billy on Twitter at RogersParkMan, and follow Bailey J on Twitter at BaileyJTweets. Speaking of Twitter, at Master Juratak tweets a lot of acronyms on your show at Fake Dan Savage. New listeners are people too. Fill us in. GGG, good giving it a game. DTMFA, dump the motherfucker already. Actually, if you ever hear an acronym on this program that you don't understand, you can Google it with my name and it'll take you to a wiki page or an Urban Dictionary page where you will find that thing unpacked at great length. So you don't have to be confused. The Google, it's your friend and mine too. The Savage Lovecast is produced every week by Nancy Hartunian and me and the tech-savvy at-risk youth and Nancy. We will all be back at you next week with another installment of the Savage Lovecast. Thanks for downloading.